6 months after the discovery, the Earth was a different world. Not in appearance, but in spirit. Humanity had finally grown up, had finally understood that they were not alone and not safe. The comfortable illusion of being the only intelligent species had been shattered. Yunji stood in the control center of the Global Defense Initiative headquarters in Geneva. Screens covered every wall, showing data from satellites, research stations, and military bases around the world. The room hummed with activity as people coordinated efforts across continents and time zones. Daeho sat at a nearby console, reviewing the latest engineering reports. "The first test flight of the prototype ship is scheduled for next month," he said. "If it works, we'll be able to reach Mars in 3 days instead of 6 months. And if it doesn't work?" Minji asked from her station. "Then we keep trying," Daeho said simply. "Failure isn't an option anymore." The Talvek figured this out. "We can too." Soo-hyun walked into the room with exciting news. "The weapon systems are ready for field testing. We've taken the Talvek energy weapon design and improved it. Our version is 3 times more powerful and uses half the energy. The first units will be installed on the orbital platforms next week." Hyunwoo reviewed the specifications on his screen. "Good work. What about the shield technology?" "Still in development," Soo-hyun admitted. "The Talvek had basic deflector shields, but they weren't strong enough to stop the Devourers. We're trying to enhance them, but it's complicated physics. We might need another year." "We might not have another year," Hyunwoo said grimly. "The Devourers could arrive tomorrow or in 100 years. We have no way of knowing." Jiho entered the control center, followed by a group of engineers. "We've made a breakthrough with the colony ships. The new propulsion system means we can travel much farther, much faster. If we have to evacuate Earth, we can reach potentially habitable planets within a few decades instead of centuries." It was good news, but it also reminded everyone of the terrible possibility that Earth might fall, that humanity might have to abandon their homeworld and become wanderers in space, just like the Talvek. Yunji had been working on something else, something that might be even more important than weapons or ships. "I've been studying the Talvek psychology," she announced to the group. "Understanding how they thought, how they made decisions. I think I know why they lost." Everyone turned to listen. Yunji pulled up her research on the main screen. "The Talvek were too peaceful. When the Devourers attacked, they tried diplomacy first. They tried to understand why the Devourers consumed worlds. They tried to find a peaceful solution. By the time they realized there was no reasoning with the Devourers, it was too late. They had lost too many worlds, too many people." "So what do we do differently?" Daeho asked. "We prepare for war from day one," Yunji said. "We hope for peace, but we're ready for violence. The Talvek's compassion was beautiful, but it got them killed. We need to be smarter. We need to be harder." Hyunwoo nodded in agreement. "The military forces are being restructured. Every nation is contributing soldiers to a unified Earth defense force. We're training them in zero-gravity combat, ship-to-ship warfare, and tactics for fighting an enemy we've never seen. It's not easy, but we're learning." Minji had been monitoring deep space signals. The beacon has been silent for 3 months now. No response from anyone. No Talvek survivors, no Devourers, just silence. "The silence is good," Jiho said. "It means we have more time." But Daeho wasn't so sure. "Or it means the Devourers don't need to respond. Maybe they just come and destroy. No warning, no negotiation, just consumption." It was a dark thought, but an important one. The team couldn't afford to be optimistic. They had to plan for the worst-case scenario. That evening, Yunji returned to the underwater facility where the Venhara still rested. Much of the ship had been dismantled for study, but the main structure remained. She walked through the corridors that the Talvek crew had walked 12,000 years ago. In the captain's quarters, she stood before the message carved into the wall. The translation was now displayed on a small screen beside it. "We die so that others might live. We're trying," Yunji said softly to the empty room. "We're using everything you gave us. We're preparing. We're united. I just hope it's enough." She thought about the captain, about her final moments. Had she known her sacrifice would work? Had she believed that humanity would survive long enough to find the ship and understand the warning? Or had she simply hoped, with no guarantee, that her death would mean something? Footsteps echoed behind her. Daeho had followed her down. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. Yunji shook her head. "Every time I close my eyes, I think about the Devourers. About what they did to the Talvek. About what they might do to us. Then we don't let them, Daeho said firmly. The Talvek were peaceful explorers. But humans? We're survivors. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own stupidity. We're still here, and we're not going anywhere. They stood together in silence, two humans in an alien ship, carrying the weight of their entire species on their shoulders. It was terrifying and inspiring at the same time. Back in Geneva, Hyunwoo was having a late-night meeting with world leaders via video conference. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals from every major nation listened as he presented the latest updates. In 6 months, we've made incredible progress, he said. We have weapons based on Talvek technology. We have ships capable of faster-than-light travel. We have orbital defenses and ground-based weapons. We have unified command structures and shared resources. Humanity has never been more prepared for anything. A Chinese general spoke up. But is it enough? The Talvek had 300 years to prepare and they lost. The Talvek were fighting alone, Hyunwoo countered. Each of their worlds tried to defend itself separately. They didn't truly unite until it was too late. We're different. We're starting united. Every human, every nation, every resource focused on one goal. The president of Brazil asked the question everyone was thinking. What are our chances? Realistically? Hyunwoo paused, then answered honestly. I don't know. The Talvek were more advanced than we are now and they lost, but they also gave us their knowledge, their technology, and most importantly, their warning. We're not walking into this blind. We know what's coming, and knowing is half the battle. The meeting ended with agreements to increase funding for defense research, to accelerate the production of weapons and ships, and to continue the global unity that had emerged from the crisis. As dawn broke over Geneva, Yoonji received a message from Soo-hyun. Come to the launch facility. You need to see this. She arrived to find the entire team gathered around a spacecraft. It was small, just a prototype, but it was beautiful. Sleek lines, Talvek technology integrated with human engineering, ready for its first test flight. This is it, Soo-hyun said proudly. The first human ship capable of faster-than-light travel. We're calling it the Talvek's Hope. Tears filled Yoonji's eyes. The name was perfect. This ship represented everything the Talvek had hoped for, that humanity would survive, that they would learn, that they would become strong enough to face the darkness. The test flight was successful. The ship jumped to lunar orbit and back in minutes, a journey that used to take days. More ships would follow, hundreds of them, an entire fleet. Daeho watched the ship land and felt hope swell in his chest. 6 months ago, he had been a simple marine biologist studying coral reefs. Now he was part of the most important project in human history. We're going to make it, he said to Minji. We're going to survive this. Minji smiled. Of course we are. We're human. We're stubborn, creative, and we never give up. The Devourers are going to regret coming here. And across the earth, in research labs and military bases, in factories and training centers, millions of people worked toward the same goal. They were preparing. They were learning. They were becoming what the Talvek had hoped they would be. Defenders not just of Earth, but of all life everywhere. The Devourers had destroyed one civilization. They would not destroy another. Humanity was ready. And when the darkness came, they would be the light that drove it back. 3 months had passed since the discovery of the Venhara. The world had changed in ways both obvious and hidden. On the surface, life seemed normal. People went to work, children went to school, the news talked about sports and weather. But underneath, everything was different. The United Nations had created something called the Global Defense Initiative. It had headquarters in Geneva, but research centers had been built on every continent. The brightest scientists, engineers, and military strategists from every country worked together. For the first time in human history, the whole world was united toward a single goal: survival. Yoonji stood in the new underwater research facility that had been built around the Venhara. The ship was no longer hidden in darkness. Powerful lights illuminated it from every angle. Engineers in advanced diving suits carefully removed pieces of technology, studying each component. Beside her, Daeho watched the work through the observation window. He looked tired. Everyone looked tired these days. We figured out their propulsion system, he said. Soo-hyun's team thinks they can build a prototype in 2 years. It works by compressing space itself. You don't push through space, you fold it. What about weapons? Yoonji asked. Jiho has been working with defense contractors from every major country. The Talvek had directed energy weapons like advanced lasers, but they were designed for defense against space debris and natural hazards, not for war. We're going to have to improve on their designs. Yunji nodded. And the beacon? We shut it down 3 months ago, Daeho confirmed. But the damage might already be done. If the Devourers detected that signal before we turned it off, they could already be on their way. Then we prepare, Yunji said firmly. We're not the same species that was hunting animals 12,000 years ago. We've split the atom. We've walked on the moon. We've survived plagues and wars. If the Devourers want Earth, they'll have to take it from us. The door opened and Hyunwoo walked in. He was now a general, commanding the military operations of the Global Defense Initiative. I have updates, he said. The Americans and Chinese have agreed to share their space technology. We're accelerating the Orbital Defense Platform program. In 5 years, we'll have armed satellites completely surrounding Earth. 5 years might not be enough, Yunji said quietly. I know, Hyunwoo admitted. That's why we're also building the colony ships. If Earth falls, humanity will survive. We'll scatter to other star systems. The Devourers might take our planet, but they won't take our species. It was the contingency plan nobody wanted to talk about. Deep in secret facilities, engineers were building massive ships capable of carrying thousands of people to distant stars. If the worst happened, if Earth couldn't be defended, humanity would become a nomadic species. Refugees just like the Talvek. Minji joined them carrying a tablet. I've finished the complete translation of all the Talvek records. Their civilization was beautiful. They had art, music, poetry, philosophy, 23 worlds, trillions of people, all gone in 300 years. But they left us their knowledge, Soo-hyun said, entering the room. Not just their technology, but their history, their warning, and in a way their hope. I found something carved into the wall of the captain's quarters. A personal message. She showed them an image on her tablet. The alien symbols were accompanied by a translation. We die so that others might live. We hide so that others might thrive. And we pray that when the darkness comes for them, they will be the light that drives it back. Not for us, but for all the silent worlds that cannot speak. Yunji felt tears in her eyes. They gave us everything. Their technology, their knowledge, their warning. They gave us a chance. Then we have to honor that, Hyunwoo said. We become what they hoped we could be. Not victims, not prey. But protectors. Not just of Earth, but of any world threatened by the Devourers. Jiho had been quiet, thinking. Now he spoke. I've been wondering what makes humans different. The Talvek were peaceful, civilized, and they lost. But humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We're violent and stubborn. Maybe that's what it takes to survive. Maybe the galaxy needs warriors, not just explorers. Maybe it needs both, Yunji countered. The Talvek's wisdom and humanity's determination. Their technology and our fighting spirit. Together we might stand a chance. In orbit above Earth, the first defense satellite powered by Talvek technology was activated. Its sensors swept through space, watching for any sign of approaching ships. More satellites were being built every day. In 10 years, there would be hundreds of them. On the ground, military bases around the world had been converted into training centers. Soldiers learned to use weapons that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Pilots trained in simulators for spacecraft that were still being designed. Everyone was preparing for a war that might never come, but nobody wanted to be caught unprepared. The research into the Venhara continued day and night. Every component was studied, scanned, and analyzed. The Talvek had been more advanced than humans in almost every way. Their materials were stronger. Their computers were faster. Their energy sources were more efficient. But they had lost their war. Humanity had to do better. Daeho spent his days diving around the ship, exploring every section. They had found more bodies, 8 in total. The entire crew had died here, far from home. Each one had a story, a life, dreams that were never fulfilled. They had sacrificed everything for a species they would never meet. One day, while exploring a storage compartment, Daeho found something unexpected. A small container holding what looked like seeds. He brought it to the surface carefully, and the biologists identified them as plant samples. The Talvek had brought seeds from their home world. They wanted to preserve their ecology, one scientist said, examining the seeds. Even as they were dying, they were thinking about the future, about what they could pass on. Some of the seeds were still viable. In a secure greenhouse, scientists planted them. Within weeks, alien plants began to grow. Strange flowers with colors that didn't exist on Earth. Trees with silver leaves. grasses that glowed faintly at night. It was a small thing, but it meant something. The Talvek civilization wasn't completely dead. A tiny part of their world lived on, growing in earth soil under Earth's sun. Yunji visited the greenhouse often. She would sit among the alien plants and think about the Talvek. What had their worlds looked like? What music did they create? What did they laugh about? They were gone, but not forgotten. One evening, as she sat in the greenhouse, Hyunwoo found her. "The UN Security Council has made a decision," he said. "We're going public with everything. The full truth about the Devourers, the preparation plans, everything. People deserve to know." "How do you think they'll react?" Hyunji asked. "Some will panic," Hyunwoo admitted. "Some will deny it. But most, I think, will do what humans always do. They'll adapt. They'll prepare. They'll fight." Yunji stood up and brushed dirt from her hands. The Talvek's final message said to grow strong and grow wise. "We're growing strong with their technology. But are we growing wise?" Hyunwoo smiled. "We're trying. For the first time in history, every nation is working together. We're not fighting over the technology or trying to use it against each other. We're sharing everything because we know that united, we have a chance. Divided, we have none." They walked back toward the main facility. Above them, stars filled the sky. Somewhere out there, the Devourers might be traveling through space. But humanity was no longer blind to the threat. They were warned, armed, and determined. The Talvek had bought them time. Now it was up to humans to make sure that sacrifice wasn't wasted. Hyunji didn't sleep for the next 2 days. She worked without stopping, surrounded by computer screens and translation programs. A team of experts from around the world had joined her. Mathematicians, computer scientists, and code breakers all worked together to understand the alien data. The crystal sphere from the ship had been carefully retrieved and brought to the surface. It sat in a special container in the research lab, still glowing with that amber light. Scientists studied it from every angle, trying to understand how it worked. Jiho had connected sensors to the sphere, and the readings were incredible. "This thing has been generating power for at least 12,000 years, he said, showing the data to Hyunwoo. "Our best batteries last maybe 10 years. Whatever technology this is, it's beyond anything we have." But it was the data tablet that changed everything. They had found it in one of the crew quarters, clutched in the hands of a dead alien. The body had been perfectly preserved by some kind of stasis field that had failed long ago. The alien was tall, maybe 7 feet, with an elongated head and large eyes. It had 6 fingers on each hand. The tablet's surface was covered in symbols and what looked like star maps. When Soohyun connected it to their computer systems, it activated immediately, as if it had been waiting all this time to tell its story. "I think I've got it," Yunji announced on the morning of the 3rd day. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they were also bright with excitement and fear. "I've translated the main log. It's like a captain's journal, and what it says is terrifying." She gathered everyone in the main conference room. Scientists, military officers, and government officials filled the seats. On the screen behind her, she displayed the translated text. "This ship was called the Venhara," she began. "It belonged to a species called the Talvek. They were peaceful explorers, scientists like us. About 12,000 years ago, they encountered another alien species, a species they call the Devourers." Hyunwoo leaned forward. "Tell us about these Devourers." Yunji's voice was grim. "The Devourers don't conquer planets. They don't want resources or territory. They consume everything. All life, all biological matter. They strip entire worlds clean and then move on to the next one, like locusts." The room was completely silent. Someone in the back whispered a prayer. Minji put her hand over her mouth. "The Talvek fought them," Yunji continued. "For 300 years they tried to stop the Devourers. They had 23 worlds, billions of people. They lost everything. The 3 aliens we found on this ship were survivors. They were running away." Jiho stood up. "Why did they come here? To Earth?" Yunji pulled up more translated text. "They detected a young species on this planet. Us. Humans. We were in the early stages of civilization, just starting to farm and build villages. The Talvek crew made a decision. They crashed their ship in the deepest water they could find to hide it." "Hide it from who?" someone asked. "From the Devourers," Yunji said. "And from us. The Devourers track advanced technology. If humans had found this ship thousands of years ago, if we had started using Talvek technology before we were ready, the Devourers would have noticed us. We would have become a target. Jiho stood up suddenly. Then why leave the beacon on? Why risk drawing them here? Jiho, who had been reading the full translation on his tablet, answered quietly. Because they hoped other Talvek ships would find it. Other survivors. The beacon wasn't strong enough to reach Devourer space, but it could reach other refugee ships. Could reach, Hyunwoo said, his voice heavy. Past tense. But we changed that. When we opened the door, when we activated the ship's systems, we made the beacon much stronger, maybe 10 times stronger. The implications hit everyone at once. They had potentially announced humanity's presence to a species that destroyed entire civilizations. Yoonji pulled up the final entry from the captain's log. Her voice shook as she read it aloud. To whoever finds this vessel, we are sorry. We tried to lead the Devourers away from this world. If you are reading this and you are from this planet, know that you have been given a gift. Time. Use it wisely. The Devourers are patient, but they never stop. Grow strong, grow wise, and when they come, because they will come, be ready to fight not just for your world, but for all life in the galaxy. Nobody spoke for a long moment. The weight of the message pressed down on them all. These aliens had sacrificed themselves to protect a species they had never met. They had given humanity 12,000 years to grow and develop in safety. And now that safety might be ending. A government official from Australia broke the silence. What do we do? Do we shut down the beacon? Do we destroy the ship? No, Yoonji said firmly. The Talvek gave us their technology for a reason. They wanted us to have a chance. We need to study everything on that ship. We need to learn how their propulsion works, how their weapons work, how their energy systems work. We need to prepare, Hyunwoo nodded slowly. She's right. If the Devourers are coming, we can't fight them with guns and missiles. We need advanced technology. And that ship is our only source, but can we trust it? Someone asked. How do we know this isn't a trick? How do we know the Devourers didn't create this whole story to trap us? Soo-hyun spoke up. Because of the bodies. We've analyzed them. They're real. They died thousands of years ago. The decay patterns match the timeline. And the emotion in that final message, that's not something you can fake. The captain was scared. She was desperate. She was trying to save us. Minji pulled up images of the alien crew on the screen. 3 bodies, preserved in their final moments. One was sitting at what looked like a control panel. Another was lying in a bed. The third, the captain, was holding the data tablet with her 6-fingered hands. They died alone, Minji said softly. Far from their home, far from their people. They gave up everything to protect a species they didn't even know. We owe them. We owe them our survival. Daeho looked around the room at all the different faces. Korean, Australian, American, Chinese, Russian, and more. People from dozens of countries, all brought together by this discovery. The Talvek were united when they fought the Devourers, and they still lost. But they were peaceful. They weren't warriors, humans. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know war. We know survival. Maybe that's what it takes, Yoonji smiled grimly. Maybe the galaxy doesn't need another race of peaceful explorers. Maybe it needs fighters. Maybe it needs humans, Hyunwoo stood up. Then we fight. We study that ship. We learn everything we can. We prepare. And if the Devourers come, they're going to learn that humans don't give up. We don't surrender. We fight until the very end. Around the room, people nodded. Fear was still there, but something else was growing too. Determination, anger, a stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The Talvek had given them time. Now humanity had to use it wisely. The clock was ticking, and somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something terrible might be heading their way. 2 days after Daeho found the ship, the whole world was talking about it. Every news channel showed the photos he had taken. Every website had articles about aliens and what this meant for humanity. The Australian government had closed off the entire area, and Navy ships formed a circle around the discovery site. Dr. Yoonji arrived on the first airplane from Seoul. She was an expert in languages, but not human languages. She had spent her whole career studying how alien species might communicate. Everyone thought her work was just theoretical, just imagination. Now it was suddenly the most important job in the world. She stood on the deck of the large research ship that floated above the alien vessel. In front of her were computer screens showing the symbols from the ship's hull. She had been staring at them for 6 hours straight, barely stopping to eat or drink. These are not random designs, she said to the military officers and scientists gathered around her. This is definitely a language. Look at how the patterns repeat. Look at how some symbols appear together while others never touch. This is structured communication. Commander Hyunwoo, a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes, leaned forward.
Can you translate it?
Yoonji shook her head slowly. Not yet. It could take months or years. We have nothing to compare it to. Every human language shares some basic rules because we all evolved on Earth. But this is completely alien. The beings who wrote this might not even think the way we do. A young engineer named Jiho burst into the room holding a tablet. He looked excited and scared at the same time. We have a big problem. The underwater probe we sent down is detecting energy inside the ship. Everyone in the room froze. Hyunwoo spoke first. What kind of energy? We don't know, Jiho said, pulling up readings on the main screen. But it's active. After thousands of years underwater, something inside that ship is still working. And it's pulsing like a heartbeat. The room erupted with voices. Scientists argued about what this meant. Military officers talked about security. Someone mentioned that other countries were sending their own ships to the site. The Americans would arrive tomorrow. The Chinese the day after. Everyone wanted access to the alien technology. Yoonji raised her hand for quiet. We need to get inside that ship. If there's working technology in there, we need to understand it before someone else does. Hyunwoo crossed his arms. Before someone else does? Dr. Yoonji, 15 different countries have ships heading here right now. The Russians, the British, the Japanese, everyone. They all want this technology. Some of them might try to take it by force. Then we move fast, Yoonji said firmly. We're here first. We found it first. We need to learn everything we can before politics gets in the way. Daeho, who had been quiet in the corner, finally spoke. When can we go back down? I found it. I should be part of the team that opens it. Hyunwoo thought for a moment, then nodded. Tomorrow morning, we'll send down a full team with remote vehicles and scanning equipment. If we're going to open this thing, we're going to do it carefully. That night, Yoonji couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the symbols, about what they might mean. She had brought her entire research library with her. Thousands of books and files about communication theory, mathematics, and logic. Somewhere in all that knowledge was the key to understanding the alien writing. She pulled up the symbols on her laptop and started marking patterns. After 2 hours, she noticed something interesting. Some symbols appeared exactly 42 times. Others appeared in groups of 7. The numbers weren't random. They were mathematical. Oh my God, she whispered. They're using mathematics as the foundation of their language. Because math is universal, any intelligent species would understand basic numbers. She started working faster, her fingers flying across the keyboard. If the symbols were based on math, then she could start building a translation matrix. It would take time, but it was possible. The next morning, the diving team gathered on the ship's deck. Daeho checked his equipment while Minji went over the communication systems. 2 other divers, both experienced military personnel, prepared their gear. Remote vehicles were loaded with cameras and sensors. As they prepared to dive, Jiho approached with new information. The energy signature has increased. Whatever is down there, it knows we're here. It's like it's waking up. Hyunwoo grabbed Jiho's arm. Is it dangerous? Could it explode or release radiation? We don't think so, Jiho said. The energy is stable, but it's definitely responding to our presence. Maybe it has sensors that detect movement or sound. The dive took longer this time because they brought so much equipment. When they reached the ship, Daeho saw that something had changed. The symbols were glowing faintly, pulsing with soft blue light. The ship looked alive. A small remote vehicle moved along the hull, searching for an entrance. After 20 minutes, it found something. A circular pattern on the bottom of the ship, different from the other symbols. When the vehicle sent an electromagnetic pulse at it, the circle began to open. It's a door, Soo-hyun said from the control room on the surface. She was a robotics expert who was controlling the remote vehicle. The door mechanism still works after all this time. What is this thing made of? The door opened slowly like a flower, revealing a dark corridor inside. Daeho wanted to swim in immediately, but Hyunwoo's voice stopped him through the communication system. No, we send the vehicle in first. We don't risk human lives until we know it's safe. The remote vehicle entered the alien ship, its lights cutting through the darkness. The corridor was hexagonal, covered in more glowing symbols. It extended 30 meters before splitting into 3 directions. In the center chamber, the camera showed something that made everyone gasp. A pedestal stood in the middle of the room. On top of it sat a crystal sphere, glowing with warm amber light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. That's the power source, Jiho said, watching the energy readings. And it's transmitting something, a signal. Very low frequency, but very powerful. Yoonji felt her blood turn cold. Transmitting where, to who? I don't know, Jiho admitted. But if I had to guess, it's calling home. It's been calling for thousands of years. Minji had been working on translating the symbols around the sphere. Suddenly, she made a sound of horror. No, oh no. I think I understand what this is. Everyone turned to look at her. She was shaking as she pulled up her translation on the screen. It's a distress beacon. The ship didn't land here on purpose. It crashed, and the beacon has been asking for rescue for thousands of years. The room went silent. Then Hyunwoo said what everyone was thinking. If that beacon has been transmitting for thousands of years and we just made it stronger by opening the door, then whoever owns this ship might be coming to find it. And they might be coming right now. The blue water sparkled under the morning sun as Daeho checked his diving equipment one more time. He was a marine biologist who studied ocean life, and today he was going to investigate something strange. For 3 weeks, his sonar equipment had been showing unusual patterns on the ocean floor. The patterns looked too perfect to be natural rocks or coral. His partner Minji stood on the boat deck holding the communication radio. She looked at the computer screen showing the underwater maps. The readings are coming from 90 meters down, she said. That's pretty deep. Are you sure about this? Daeho nodded and put on his diving mask. I've been diving for 15 years. I'll be fine. Besides, we need to know what's down there. The university won't give us more research money unless we find something interesting. He jumped backward into the water and felt the cool ocean surround him. The descent was slow and careful. He followed the rope line down, watching the light fade as he went deeper. Small fish swam past him in silver flashes. The water turned from bright blue to dark blue, then to a deep twilight color. At 40 meters, he checked his depth gauge. At 60 meters, he turned on his underwater lights. At 80 meters, he started to wonder if this was a waste of time. Maybe the sonar had made a mistake. Maybe it was just a weird rock formation after all. Then he reached 93 meters and his breath caught in his throat. Between 2 coral ridges, sitting in a small canyon, was something impossible. It was shaped like a giant teardrop, about 50 meters long. The surface was black and smooth like glass, but it seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Strange symbols covered the hull in neat rows. The symbols were angular and precise, nothing like any human writing system he had ever seen. Minji, he said into his communication device, his voice shaking. Are you getting video from my camera? There was a long pause. Then Minji's voice came back, filled with shock. Daeho, what am I looking at? That's not a rock. That's not a shipwreck. What is that thing? I don't know, Daeho said, swimming slowly closer. But I don't think it's from Earth. He reached out with one gloved hand, hesitating for just a moment. His fingers touched the smooth surface, and suddenly the symbols lit up with bright blue light. A vibration moved through the water like a pulse. Daeho jerked his hand back, his heart pounding hard in his chest, but nothing else happened. The blue light faded slowly until the ship was dark again. Daeho waited, watching carefully, but the object just sat there in silence. I'm taking samples of the surface, he told Minji, and I'm going to photograph everything. Every angle, every symbol, everything. He spent the next hour circling the mysterious object, taking hundreds of photos. He scraped tiny samples from the hull and put them in collection tubes. The material felt harder than steel but lighter than aluminum. It was cold to the touch, even though metal usually felt warm at this depth. The symbols fascinated him most. They weren't random decorations. They followed clear patterns repeating in sequences. Some symbols were larger than others. Some were grouped together. It looked like writing, like language, like someone was trying to communicate something. As his air supply ran low, Daeho took one last look at the ship. It sat there in the deep water, silent and mysterious, hiding secrets that had probably been buried for thousands of years. He felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. This discovery would change everything. Nothing would ever be the same again. He began his slow ascent back to the surface, following proper decompression procedures. His mind raced with questions. Where did this ship come from? Who built it? When did it crash here? Were there bodies inside? Was there technology that still worked? When he finally climbed back onto the boat, Minji grabbed his arm. Her face was pale. Daeho, I've been watching the news on my phone while you were down there. You need to see this. She showed him her screen. Somehow word had already gotten out. Someone must have been monitoring their research frequencies. The news headline read, "Possible alien spacecraft discovered off Australian coast." How did they find out so fast? Daeho asked, pulling off his diving gear. "I don't know," Minji said. "But look at this. The Australian Navy is already on its way. And the American Navy. And the Chinese Navy, everyone is coming." Daeho looked back at the water where the ship lay hidden below. "We need to get our samples to a lab immediately, before the government takes everything away from us. This is the most important discovery in human history, and we found it." That night, as their boat headed back to shore, Daeho couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the ship, about the symbols that had glowed with blue light when he touched them. The ship had responded to him somehow. After sitting dead in the ocean for who knows how long, it had reacted to a human touch. What did that mean? Was there still power inside? Was there still something alive? By the time they reached the harbor, military boats were already blocking the area. Helicopters flew overhead. Daeho and Minji were immediately taken to a secure location for questioning. Their samples were confiscated. Their photos were copied onto government computers. But Daeho had been smart. Before leaving the research boat, he had uploaded copies of everything to a secure cloud server. The world deserved to know the truth. Humanity deserved to know they were not alone in the universe. As he sat in the government interview room answering the same questions over and over, Daeho thought about the ship. Somewhere deep below the surface it waited, silent, patient, holding answers to questions humanity had been asking for thousands of years. Who made it? Why did it come to Earth? What happened to the crew? And most importantly, would others come looking for it? The discovery had been made. The world was stunned, but this was just the beginning. The real story was about to unfold, and Daeho knew in his heart that humanity was not ready for what was coming. The ship had been found. Now someone had to open it, and when they did, everything would change forever. Outside the interview room window, the sun was setting over the ocean. Somewhere out there in the deep water off Australia's coast, an alien ship waited in the darkness. Its secrets were about to be revealed, whether humanity was ready or not.